Hello, everyone. This is Jeff Carreira. So first of all, I want to thank you for joining me today. And so I want to start with the obvious. What is the myth of waking up? Now, those of you that already know me are going to be familiar with many of the things that I'm saying. I may be using slightly different words today than I've used before, but many things will be familiar to you. But I really would ask you to remain very open to what you're hearing, because even though you've heard similar things before, just understanding the things that I'm saying is not really the point. Of course, understanding what I'm saying is good, but there's something beyond understanding. There's that moment, that aha, where you get it, which is beyond understanding. It's where the reality of what I'm speaking about enters into you. And so, no matter how much this sounds familiar to you, make the effort to be open to the possibility that something might strike you in a way it never has before, no matter how many times you've heard similar things. And for those of you who don't know me, of course, sometimes that makes it easier to stay open. But please do continue to be open beyond merely understanding the words. But be open to the place that the words are pointing you to. So we're doing a seminar called Beyond the Myth of Waking Up. And the first question we want to address is, what is the myth of waking up? And as I'm defining it, the myth of waking up is any belief that there is something called awakening that is going to happen in the future. Almost without exception, everyone who moves onto the path of awakening or enlightenment is relating to it as something that they want to have happen to them. I want to get enlightened. I want to wake up. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, we need to move beyond that in order for the event of awakening, or I shouldn't say the event, I should say the reality of awakening to be. So, what is the myth of waking up? It's any belief that there is something called awakening that is going to happen in the future. How do you go beyond the myth of waking up? You do that by accepting that you are already awake. So those of you who know me, and maybe even those of you who don't but have read about me, know that part of my background is in the spiritual tradition of Advaita Vedanta. And that is a non-dual tradition, which is primarily focused on the truth that you are already awake. In fact, in that tradition, any effort that you are making to wake up is itself the obstacle to realizing that you're already awake. So if you're busy doing things to wake up, that busyness keeps you from recognizing that you're already awake. So how do you go beyond the myth of waking up? By accepting that you are already awake. Okay, easy to say, accept that you're already awake. But how do you do that? What does that mean? Accepting that you're already awake, it doesn't mean realizing that you're awake in some kind of a cognitive way. So this is what gets very challenging for us. Right now I'm about to express the crux of what I want to convey to you in this hour. The paradigm that we live in, the culture that we were raised in, is very biased towards intellectual recognition. And so that bias comes with us onto the spiritual path. And so when most people are claiming that they want to wake up, what they really mean without realizing it is that they want to know that they're awake. And when we say we want to know that we're awake, what we mean is we want to have some kind of an experience that convinces us that we're awake, that we can see and use as proof to ourselves that we are awake. So when we say that we want to wake up, what we're really saying is that we want proof. We want some kind of an experience that will prove to us that we're awake. But what I want to tell you today is that that's not what awakening is. Because if you need proof to show you that you're awake, then you're still in a place where you're not awake. You know, there's still something that needs to happen before you can accept that you're already awake. So the supreme challenge of this kind of spiritual work, the kind of spiritual work that I'm sharing with you today and that I teach and that I was introduced to many years ago and practiced for many years, the supreme challenge of it is it's not about knowing that you're awake or getting proof that you're awake or having an experience that awakens you. It's about taking this leap of faith into the immediate acceptance that you're already awake. What is the most immediate path to awakening? And I would say this is it. This is as immediate as it gets. And it's also the thing that makes this so challenging. So right now, you simply have to accept that you're awake. That regardless of what your experience might be, this is the experience of an awakened being. We have difficulty accepting that. When we have difficulty accepting that, the reason we have difficulty is because we have some idea about what awakened experience should look like that's different than what we're experiencing now. So then we're looking at our experience now and saying this is not awakened experience because it's not this other thing that I believe is awakened experience. So we have some kind of an image or a model or a belief about what awakened consciousness is. And we compare our experience of this moment to that belief in order to see if we're awake. So when my experience matches this belief, then that's the proof I need that I'm awake. And in very subtle ways, that's almost always what people are engaged in the name of waking up. But the path I'm sharing with you is so supremely immediate because it asks you to realize that the experience you're having right now is already awake. And your mind will come up with all kinds of considerations. What about this? What about that? Or objections. It can't be awake if this. It can't be awake if that. So the question is, do you have the courage to let go of all of that and just step into an acceptance that this is it? Give up any ideas you have about what awakening is. And allow yourself to feel disappointed if that's what arises. The disappointment of, oh, this is it? This is awake? So rather than wanting our experience to match the experience that we think is awakened consciousness, instead, the supremely immediate path to awakening is to give up any investment or even interest in some future awakening and be perfectly content with the way things are now. You see, if there was going to be some future event where our experience of consciousness matched our ideal of what awakening is, what we imagine is that at that point, then we'd be satisfied. Now I'm content. So the end result would be that we would be content because in that case, we were having the right experience. Now, of course, the reality is that'll never change, because even if you have some experience, which most of us have, which matches our belief about enlightenment, and even if we are able to be content while we're having that experience, the reality is experiences come and go. And so then we end up not being free at all. We end up being bound to certain experiences, and we have to keep having them, keep chasing them, because only when we're having some kind of awakened experience are we able to really be content, spiritually content and relax. The much more profoundly direct and absolutely sustainable path is to be content now with exactly the way things are. That means that we don't need or want anything to be different than how it is. Now, this gets so subtle. It seems simple. It's easy to understand. It means you don't need or want anything to be different than how it is. But of course, there's a part of us that thinks, well, of course, if I didn't need or want anything to be different than how it is, I would be content. But that's not the case. I do need and want things to be different. There's this wrong, and this needs to happen, and that needs to happen. And I feel a lot of need for this thing to occur, and I feel a lot of desire for this other thing. And there's something in my experience that I really feel like needs to go away. And whatever is that combination of considerations, the supremely direct path to awakening is to be content with all of that. our habit is going to be to think that I need to make those things change first, and then I can be content. But the actual path to awakening is the path in which you just say, okay, I have all these things that I need to be different. I have all these things that I want to be different. I have all these things that I need to go away, etc., etc., etc. And I'm totally content. I'm totally okay with exactly the way things are. All you want is to be exactly like this, is to be with yourself and with the world, with reality, exactly the way it is. Not wanting anything to change. Even all of those parts of us that so desperately want things to change, I don't even want that to change. I just want to be exactly with that. The way things are is what makes your heart sing. That's what makes you content. Even if, and this is where it gets subtle, even if it doesn't feel good, it's still only the only thing you want. Even if it's painful or boring or frustrating, even if you feel burdened with need and want and desire, and you have all these things that need to change, and even if they're perfectly legitimate, which many of them are, still, you wouldn't want any of it to change because this is exactly the way it is. That's what you care about. You care about reality. You just want to be with the real. You don't want to turn reality into something you'll like better. You want to be here, completely present, exactly as you are, loving life as it is, loving yourself as you are. Your fulfillment comes in this, in what's here, and you don't want anything else. And again, it's so challenging to speak about this because our cultural predispositions will keep making us hear or assume that the reason we want exactly this is because things have become what we want them to be. And that's not what I'm saying at all. You might not feel content, feel happy. You might not feel your heart singing. That release into the way things are is happening in a realm that's invisible. In the visible realm of what we can see, we may feel deep frustration, we may feel want, we may feel problems, either personal or global, that we just really feel need to change. And they probably do. But can we be okay with the fact that there are things that really need to change, that there are things that are really wrong? Because there are always going to be things that are really wrong. We may even feel that we need to do a lot to make things better. Can we be okay with that? Can we be okay with the fact that we're called to give energy and effort and time to making things better? Can we engage with that and be okay with the fact that we feel compelled to do that and still be totally content? So when I teach the practice of meditation in a form that I call the Art of Conscious Contentment. And it is exactly the art of being perfectly content with exactly the way things are, right now, without anything at all needing to change. And no matter what comes up, you're content with that. Even if you have questions about being content coming up, you're content with that. This is it. There's no future. There's nothing that's going to happen. Nothing's going to get better. The end of the road is meditation. The end of the road is complete contentment with the way things are. And the last thing I want to share with you is, again, completely paradoxical, very likely to introduce a new source of confusion. But we have to risk it. You see, this end of the road means the end of becoming, the end of needing anything, the end of wanting anything. For the ego, for the separate sense of self, for the personality of Jeff that was born on my birthday and will die when this body ends, for that part of my being, it's the end. It's the end. It ends in this release into fulfillment, into falling in love with the way things are, exactly as they are. No more doing anything for the future. But that moment is exactly the moment when a deeper source of consciousness comes to life. That contentment with the way things are ends the striving for becoming of the ego, because the ego is now completely satisfied, in love with the way things are, totally fulfilled with exactly this moment. And so it's no longer doing anything. It's no longer trying to do anything. And so now your life is available for a higher consciousness to live through it. And that's the continuation of the journey. The reality that emerges when we give up the future, when the ego or the separate sense of self comes to the end of becoming in this acceptance of contentment and fulfillment. It's a reality for a higher consciousness at a higher level of being. It's a new reality. For me, it's the heart of the paradigm shift that I'm most interested in. So now I would like to ask us to sit together in meditation. So please sit in a way that's comfortable and really allow yourself to be completely still during this practice. In that complete stillness, just allow yourself to be totally content with exactly this. Let go of any future, anything you want to happen. Allow your heart to expand into the space of now. There's nothing that you want in the future, nothing that you love that isn't already here. This exact experience of life is all that you care about. So you simply sit and relish in being alive. This is it. There's nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to want, except this, the truth of this moment, the reality of this exact experience of life. Allow all of your attention, all of your focus, all of your energy to be right here, exactly where we are. How close can you get to the exact experience of this moment? Allow the intensity to build, the intensity of focus, the intensity of recognition. This is it. You're here in reality, in the only thing that exists, the experience of this moment. Everything else is an idea. Ideas of the future. Ideas about the past. But this moment is what is. You're here. You arrived a long time ago, and you've never been anywhere but here. There was never anywhere else to go. Allow yourself to rejoice in the truth that you've arrived. It doesn't matter what this moment feels like. It doesn't matter what it contains. It's the only moment there is ever. And you're here. Thank you very much. We can end the meditation. Take a moment to reground. If what I'm saying is resonating for you, then I would want to support you to give everything to it so that you can live this perfect contentment, and so that the divine can shine through your life into this world that so desperately needs it. If this teaching isn't resonating with you, or if you need something else, that's perfectly fine. I realize that there are many paths, and I wish only that everyone find their own path so that as many people can awaken on this planet as possible. So with that, right now, I simply want to thank all of you for joining me during this hour. This was an absolutely lovely time. And I hope I get the chance to work with many of you in many different ways as time goes on. So thank you so much. Bye now.